Imagine if we went back in time and gave an NFL team a cheat sheet for the draft, telling them exactly who the best players are in the position they are drafting for the first and second rounds, occasionally giving them a little nudge when it comes to free agency and who they shouldn't let go. What would those teams look like now if they were able to always play the draft perfectly? That's what I'm here to try and answer. Alright, so today we're looking at the Panthers, and I gotta tell you, this team is kind of boring, and not in a bad way, and no disrespect to the Panthers, but the Panthers are actually very good in the draft, and you're about to see that. So let's build this team right now, starting with left tackle. It's all the same with Michael Orr as long as he's healthy. Then we move on to left guard, and we've got our first change in 2012 with the 42nd pick. The Panthers took Amini Silatolu. Kelechi Osemele is the man they could have had, and I'm pretty sure they would gladly take. Then as we move across the offensive line, it's all the same. Ryan Khalil, Trey Turner, and Mike Remmers. Obviously the two tackles still a little bit weak here, but that's a nice looking line the Panthers have got here. Tight end, easy answer, still Greg Olsen. And then we move down to the wide receivers, and they've made a couple of picks at wide receiver over the years. So in 2014, with the 28th overall pick, the Panthers took Kelvin Benjamin. Now I would say that's correct, but I do believe Allen Robinson is on the upper tier of wide receivers. So Kelvin Benjamin, very close to correct, but there is a big enough difference to me between Allen Robinson and Benjamin, where Robinson would have been a better pick, but obviously Kelvin Benjamin was not a bad one whatsoever. Then in 2015, with the 41st pick, they took Devin Funchess. They could have had Stephon Diggs instead, and then their final receiver would be Ted Ginn Jr., and you've got yourself quite the group. Running back and fullback still the same, so Jonathan Stewart and Mike Tolbert. But then, with the first overall pick in 2011, the Panthers took Cam Newton, and I mean, obviously that was the right pick. Your other options there are Tyrod Taylor and Andy Dalton. Cam Newton, obviously the right pick at first overall, and that is the offense here. One change at guard, two changes at wide receiver, and that is an offense that could take the Panthers back to the Super Bowl. So, on to the defense, and we start at free safety. No changes, it's still Kurt Coleman. Strong safety, no changes, it's still Trey Boston, and then we come on to the linebackers. Right outside linebacker, obviously it's still Thomas Davis. Then at middle linebacker in 2012, with the 9th overall pick, the Panthers took Luke Kuechly, and you can't pick better than the best middle linebacker in the NFL. Luke Kuechly won NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 2013 for a reason. No doubt this was the right pick. Then we move on to left outside linebacker, where in 2015, with the 25th overall pick, the Panthers took Shaq Thompson. Now that was a good pick, and there are no better outside linebackers, but because they play a 4-3, I'm going to bend the rules slightly and say getting Jordan Hicks to play outside linebacker in a 4-3 probably isn't that difficult. I think he'd transfer quite easily, but this is a second pick where if I stay hardcore to the rules, the Panthers couldn't really have done better, and they made the right picks. So Kelvin Benjamin would still be here instead of Allen Robinson, Shaq Thompson would still be here rather than Jordan Hicks, but we'll bend them slightly just to have more changes, because otherwise the Panthers are just too good at the draft. And now we come down to the bottom line, and I'm pretty sure you probably expected this to be said the second you saw it was about the Panthers. Our starting cornerback, we're taking advantage of the free agency rule. You don't let Josh Norman go. That is the call we're making here. So Josh Norman is still on the team, joined by James Bradbury and Darryl Worley. Now let's be fair to the Panthers here. Josh Norman was more of a casualty to the salary cap, or potential casualty in the future. So the argument isn't necessarily that they were wrong to let him go, but because we are here in no salary cap land, it's okay to say Josh Norman should have stayed. Onto the defensive line, and why not start with the only man that wasn't drafted in the last 5 years, Charles Johnson here at left end. Then in 2014, with the 60th pick in the draft, they selected Coney Ealy. That was definitely the correct pick. I don't think there were really any better defensive ends taken before Ealy, let alone after him. It wasn't a great year for defensive ends, but Coney Ealy is a good one. And then we come to 2013, and both picks in the first and second round finish off our team here at the defensive tackle position. We need two of them. 14th overall pick, the Panthers selected Star Lotulelei, and that is the wrong pick because they should have taken Kawan Short before him. That's obviously a joke, they took both of them. So Kawan Short, Star Lotulelei on the team, both of them selected in 2013. Technically, obviously, Kawan Short, the better player, you would say they took him first, but it really doesn't matter. The only other defensive tackles they could have taken instead of Star Lotulelei, Sharif Floyd or Jonathan Hankins, but I'd say Star Lotulelei probably the correct pick. One final thing I wanted to say for the Panthers, if we discount Jordan Hicks and Kelvin Benjamin as having been changed picks, they would have only had two different picks where we could really argue quite easily that there were better players to take. Every single other pick, so 7 out of a possible 9, was as good as they could do pretty much in the position they drafted. Of course, I've said it before, Technically, you can argue they should have been drafting other positions and then look at the team they could have had, but that's too much. That's the position they wanted to address, that's the player they took, and the Panthers have been very good at it. Maybe 2016 you can have a little bit of a go at them with how good they were there, taking 15 cornerbacks, but up until then, very, very precise in the first 2 rounds of the draft, going in for talent and getting pretty much the best talent they could have done in that position.